The United Kingdom has quietly declared a new kind of war, not one fought on the battlefield, but through policies, paperwork, and percentages. It's a war that strikes at ambition, especially the dreams of students and skilled workers from around the world. The government now wants the Office for Students to set strict recruitment limits on courses that lead to poor outcomes. Why? Because recent studies show that nearly 30% of students fail to progress into good quality jobs or further education. To address this, they are cutting the cost of classroom-based foundation years, bringing fees down from £9,250 to £5,760. At the same time, they're injecting £40 million into degree apprenticeships, aiming to strengthen pathways into the job market. In paper, this might sound like reform, but when you dig into the latest Home Office data, the picture becomes much clearer. This isn't just a policy update, it's a strategy, a battle plan, and the statistics reveal something striking. Applicants from India and Nigeria, two of the largest sources of international students and skilled workers, are facing the toughest barriers. Now, let's be very clear. No single country is named. Policies are designed to look neutral, but their impact tells another story. Recruitment caps, tighter requirements, and discouraging visa pathways all combine to achieve the government's goal: shrinking migration numbers without ever pointing a finger at one nation. Here's how ministers defend it. If students are pursuing degrees, they should graduate into good jobs, whether in public service or the private sector. Too many students, they argue, are not completing their courses or dropping out before graduation, and that, in their view, justifies recruitment limits on programs with poor outcomes. But let's not miss the forest for the trees. For years, the UK government has been under intense pressure to reduce net migration. This has become their single biggest political priority, and so what we are seeing now is a multi-front campaign targeting the largest groups of applicants. By design, international students and skilled workers, often from countries like India and Nigeria, are the ones most affected. We're about to break down exactly how this strategy works, what it means for future applicants, and who gets through the doors of the UK in 2025 and who doesn't. But first, a quick request. If you value this kind of in-depth analysis, please hit the like button so this video reaches more people who need to hear it. Share it with friends and family considering a future in the UK. And if you're new here, welcome. This channel does not shy away from the hard truths. Hit subscribe right now, because you won't find this level of clarity and detail anywhere else. Now, let's set the stage. The UK government's mission is simple: cut migration numbers whatever it takes, and international students have become the front line in this campaign. Skilled workers and students from India and Nigeria now make up the largest share of applicants. In both categories, the UK government understood that if it truly wanted to reduce migration figures, it had to focus on these two streams. But here's the challenge. How do you achieve that without drawing accusations of unfair targeting? The answer is subtle. You don't build a wall, you build a maze of complex rules and rising thresholds, rules so demanding that only a fraction of those who enter can actually make it through. The first front in this strategy is aimed squarely at skilled workers, and the government's primary tool, the salary threshold. On April 2024, the bar was raised dramatically. The minimum salary required for a skilled worker visa jumped from £26,200 to £38,700 on paper. This looks like a policy designed to attract only top-tier talent. But in practice, it acts as a highly effective filter, a filter that quietly disqualifies thousands of otherwise qualified applicants, particularly from India and Nigeria. Don't think about it. A brilliant software developer in Bangalore, a skilled marketing professional in Lagos, or an engineer with international experience might receive an excellent job offer in Manchester or Birmingham for £32,000 a year. That's a fantastic salary by most standards, but under the new rules, it falls far short of the £38,700 threshold. And just like that, the opportunity disappears, not because of talent, not because of ability, but because of a line drawn on paper. Voiceover. Before 2024, that same professional learning £32,000 a year would have been a prime candidate for a UK visa. Today, under the new rules, they face an automatic rejection. The government is fully aware that salary scales in countries like India and Nigeria, while producing world-class talent, are different from those in London's financial district. By setting the bar so high, they have effectively priced out hundreds of thousands of qualified professionals. It's a class-based barrier that quietly functions as a nationality-based barrier in disguise. The Home Office can now reject a skilled applicant from India or Nigeria not because of their nationality, but because their job offer, perfectly respectable by global standards, falls below the new threshold. This single rule change has done more to block skilled workers from these countries than any direct restriction ever could. It's silent, bureaucratic, and devastatingly effective. Now let's turn to the second front of this campaign: international students. For decades, the UK's universities have been a global beacon, attracting students from India and Nigeria in huge numbers. They came not only for the world-class education, but also for the chance to build a better future. But the government identified a specific target: the dependents, the spouses and children who often accompanied these students. In January 2024, a new restriction came into force. The vast majority of international students were banned from bringing dependents with them. Only those enrolled in specialized postgraduate research programs, a tiny fraction of the total, were exempt. This wasn't a minor policy adjustment. It was a strategic move aimed directly at the demographic profile of many Indian and Nigerian students. Here's why. Unlike many younger students from Europe or America, a large portion of postgraduate students from India and Nigeria are in their late 20s or 30s. Many are married, with young children. They are established professionals taking a career break to upskill for them. Studying abroad is not an individual pursuit, a family decision, a shared sacrifice, a collective project. The idea of leaving behind a spouse and children for 1 or 2 years is simply not an option. By banning dependents, the government effectively made the decision for them. The results speak for themselves. The number of main student applications from India and Nigeria has remained steady, but dependent applications, they have collapsed by more than 86%. The desire to study in the UK is still strong, but the government has successfully filtered out a large segment of students with families, which was exactly the outcome they intended. And finally, we arrive at the most brutal battlefield of all, the health and care worker route. Once a vital lifeline for overseas applicants, this pathway is now facing near complete dismantlement. Of all the fronts in this policy shift, the most cynical and perhaps the most devastating has been the transformation of the health and care worker route. Let's rewind. Just a few years ago, the UK government raised an urgent call to the world. Its social care system was stretched to the breaking point. Hospitals and care homes were under pressure, desperately short of workers. A global message went out: we need your help. And the world responded. Tens of thousands of dedicated professionals, many of them from India and Nigeria, answered the call. They left behind their homes, their families, and their careers, believing the UK's promise of stability and opportunity. For a time, it seemed like a true win-win. Britain gained the essential workers it needed, and applicants gained a future in one of the world's leading economies. But then came the shift. Once the numbers reached a political tipping point, the government changed course. And it wasn't just a minor adjustment. It was a sweeping reversal. First, the government employed a tactic already tested in the student sector: the dependent ban. Care workers, many of whom had spouses and children, were told they could no longer bring their families with them. For countless applicants, this was a crushing blow. Working abroad in the care sector is more than just a job, it's a life decision. And for people in their late 20s, 30s or 40s, that decision is almost always a family decision. Without the ability to bring loved ones, the incentive to make the move dramatically weakened. But the government didn't stop there. They went further, announcing a complete halt to overseas applications for care roles. The result: a door that was once wide open for international care workers was not just closed, it was slammed shut, locked, and bolted. The impact is visible in the data. At its peak, the route attracted over 18,000 main applicants in a single month. That number has now collapsed by more than 90%, falling to just around 1,000. For many hard-working professionals, particularly from India and Nigeria, this was more than a disappointment. It was the erasure of a pathway that had once been a genuine lifeline. And when we step back, the pattern becomes clear. This isn't a story of isolated reforms or disconnected tweaks to the system. It's a coordinated, multi-front restructuring of immigration policy. Each decision is deliberate. Each change is engineered for maximum impact. For skilled workers, the weapon is the salary threshold raised so high that thousands of qualified professionals are automatically filtered out. For students, the weapon is the dependent ban to target older family-based applicants, particularly from India and Nigeria. And for care workers, the weapon is outright route closure, removing the opportunity altogether. The result is not loud. It doesn't come with speeches or bold declarations. It's quiet, bureaucratic, and deeply effective. The rejections are not personal. They are systemic. The applicants are not turned away for lack of skill or ambition, but because the rules have been rewritten in ways that exclude them before their applications even land on a desk. This is not a wall that you can see. It's a web of thresholds, restrictions, and closures, each one designed to reduce the numbers without ever appearing discriminatory on the surface end. The message is unmistakable. The drawbridge has been pulled up. For millions of aspiring students and professionals, the UK is no longer the land of open opportunity it once seemed. Dreams are being rejected not with words, but with percentages, thresholds, and silent defaults. If you are thinking of applying in this new environment, you must understand the reality. You are no longer just an applicant, you are navigating a battlefield of bureaucracy. Success now depends on strategy. You need to be informed, prepared, and more resilient than ever before. The rules have changed, and only those who adapt quickly will find a way through the maze. Thank you so much for watching. I know this was heavy, but it's the reality we must confront together. Now I want to hear from you. How have these changes affected you or someone you know? Have you or your family been caught in the middle of these new rules? Share your story in the comments. Your voice matters, and together, we can keep shedding light on what's really happening.